So welcome to the College of Legal Practice's webinar on securing meaningful work experience. It's going to run like a panel session. We don't have any slides to share, and I'm delighted that we've got a great panel of experts, of people who've either lived their experiences as a trainee solicitor and getting work experience, or people who work in the field helping and teaching students, from law students to SQE students to lots of different stages of people's career. So I hope you have an engaging session. We've got lots and lots of questions that you have already submitted, so thank you so much for that. We will try and get through them all. I've grouped them into various different themes that have come up quite a lot. And we've got a huge range of attendees. So we have, as I mentioned before, we've got some of the college's students who are studying our GDL or for SQE. We've got lots of undergraduates. We've got some international students and lawyers. We've got postgraduates as well. And we've got career changers. So all very, very welcome. So in terms of accessibility, just to, before I introduce the panelists, just to say the closed captions and transcript are enabled. You need to turn it on your own Zoom settings, but you should be able to access them. And we also will provide a recording to everyone who's registered afterwards. So hopefully you can sit back and enjoy it and take notes afterwards if you want. All right. The webinar should finish by 7-ish. It might go on a little longer, but hopefully won't keep you much beyond 7. So first things first, I guess it'd be great to introduce the panelists. I'm Alice Payne. I'm from the College of Legal Practice. I've been at the college 5 years, and I help lots of prospective students think about the SQE and provide advice to them, but also help with some of the organisations and firms that we work with and support their students. So that's me. Elliot, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Hey, everyone. I'm Elliot. I'm an associate solicitor at US firm Steptoe, working in the international trade and regulatory compliance team. Joined as a paralegal and gained my training contract that way, and have actually been with the firm, I think, just over 7 years now. So yeah, I'm also representative of NRG Lawyers as well. So yeah, happy to be joined by all of you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And Imi, do you want to introduce yourself?
Absolutely. Hi, everyone. I hope you can hear me. I'm Imi. I am the head of students at the 93% Club. So what that means is I work with the UK's first and largest network of state-educated UK students. So all across the UK, we have students coming together to step over the boundaries and work together to really overcome those challenges that we have as state-educated students to make sure that we are represented in those top careers, like legal careers, for example. So we work with some absolutely fantastic legal professionals as well as law firms to make sure that we can open those opportunities to state-educated people across the UK.
Thank you. And Chow?
Yes, so hi everyone, I'm Shao. My story is quite similar to Elliot's. I'm definitely more on the junior side compared to him. So I'm currently a trainee solicitor at Halberns Limited. We're a specialist employment firm. I've worked in employment law, in immigration law, parts of litigation, and I was also in renewable energies for about 2 years before I actually started working in law. So a very diverse sort of background, but yeah, excited to talk with you guys and talk to you guys about all of this. Thank you.
Thank you. And Lisa?
Hi, yeah, I'm Lisa Morrison. So I'm the currently module leader at the college. I run the module for the SQE2 part of the qualification process. And before I started working at the college about 2 years ago, I was in private practice and in-house for 25 years. So I did a law and business undergrad back in the dark ages and did the LPC in the days when it was full-time education. And then, yeah, I've been working in the law pretty much all of my career. So hopefully got some useful insights.
Thank you. So before we start with all the questions everyone submitted, and we'd like to just hear a little bit more about the 2 organisations we're working with. So I'm going to ask Amy to go first and talk a little bit about 93% Club. And then maybe Elliot and Shao, you could add in a little bit about NRG Lawyers and what you're trying to achieve there. So over to you, Amy.
Great, thanks, Alice. So yeah, as I mentioned, we're the 90% Club and the UK's first and largest network of state school students. So what that means in practice is we exist in universities across the UK, but we also work with some fantastic legal professionals and employers across all sectors, including the legal space. And what we're trying to do is make sure that everyone from state schools has that fantastic alumni system that our counterparts who were privately educated get through an alumni system. So state schools typically in the UK don't have that same process to build those connections between their current students, along with those who have, moved on past their school, graduated into the profession. And so as someone coming from a working class background or a state school, you don't build those connections the same, especially going into top professions like the legal career, because you don't know people who have done it. You don't have friends who you went to school with typically, whose parents are solicitors, barristers, etc. Your parents aren't in that position. And so it's really hard to break those barriers and succeed in applications, understand the world of it and what that looks like. So what we do is we work with our students to make sure that they've got someone to ask those questions to, because they can't ask them around the dinner table. And we really believe in helping our students build those connections. So a really great way that we do that is 24/7. We make sure that we've got a channel for students to request support when it comes to their career. And that can be anything from a general career question. So they might ask, what does it look like going from a law degree into a legal career? Or perhaps, I don't do a law degree. I really want to go into a legal career. How can I go about that, making that step? We will take that request, connect them with a legal professional who can help them. And this is the same across all different industries as well. So if someone's on the call today who's, really interested in law, but they're not even that sure that that's exactly what they want to do, we can help everyone. So please do spread the word among friends as well. But it also might be something more specific, like perhaps you're in the process of an application for a legal job, whether that's a paralegal, whether that is a training contract, etc. And we can help with things from a CV review, an application review, a mock interview, within certain firms that you might be applying to, or just someone from the legal profession to give you that advice and spend half an hour with you to pass on that knowledge that they've gained through their career. Yeah. We also do a bunch of other things as well, but I think that's probably the most useful thing to talk through. Other things range from, connecting people with specific opportunities through to events in person. And on top of that, we also run events on campus and just create a safe space for state educated students to come together and build that network on campus. So if anyone is a university student in the UK and they're interested in getting involved, I'm going to pop our website in the chat. I hope that's okay, Alice, just to connect everyone with. Fantastic. So I've just popped that in so you can find out a little bit more. You can connect with us through that, and we'd really love to support you with whatever journey it is that you decide to take into your career. And then something that I've not yet talked about is how we then continue that throughout careers. So what we do is once our students graduate, they can become a member of our professionals network. And what that means is we have around 5,000 professionals at the minute, currently growing, who want to progress in their career. So, they're perhaps some of them are trainees, they're looking at what comes next, they're paralegals looking at what comes next, all the way through to partners who are actually looking to give back to those people and pull them up the ladder after themselves. So we do things like mentoring programs, but also those are the professionals who are state educated, they believe in that mission, who are the ones giving back to our students as well. So it's a whole ecosystem, if you will, full of state educated people. We're all state school proud. We love talking about that in our LinkedIn posts, in our conversations, in places where sometimes it feels a little bit uncomfortable, because it is so important. But ultimately what we're trying to do is make sure that everyone has that opportunity to ask the questions to the people that they need to, whether they have that around the dinner table or they don't. So hopefully everyone now feels a little bit more clued up about who we are. It's been great to chat to everyone. I hope you enjoy the rest of the session.
Thank you so much, Amy. Amy's got to disappear now, but thank you. That sounds really helpful for everyone, and another practical resource for people, which is what we're trying to achieve today. Shao and Elliot, do you want to add anything about NRG Lawyers? Because I don't know how much people know about that organisation as a source of support for people as well.
Yeah, I'm happy to pitch in here. NRG Lawyers basically stands for Non-Russell Group Lawyers, and in a similar vein to the 93% Club, which applies to state school educated individuals, this is for individuals who have graduated or are currently undertaking a law degree or a non-law degree at a non-Russell Group university. And the idea behind the organization is to, I suppose, dilute the candidate pool from which a lot of potential employers are hiring talent for the future. And so where that's often been in the legal industry, Oxbridge candidates or Russell Group graduates, the role of NRG is to try and dilute that with talent from non-Russell Group universities. And the way in which we do that is through building a sense of community. We've got a WhatsApp group that Xiao and I are a part of. I think there's over 100 members now. We've been growing. We collaborate with law firms to put on insight days, open days, sessions about building commercial awareness, CV workshops, training contract tips and advice and things of that nature. So if any of that interests any of our attendees in this webinar, then do feel free to reach out or contact us on LinkedIn. All you put in is NRG, the letters, NRG Lawyers, and you should be able to find us there.
Thank you. I'll also circulate some information on both organisations, along with some other resources right at the end of this session, along with the recording via email. So thanks. So on to some questions that we had submitted, and perhaps as we go through some of these, maybe you might want to include your progression and where you got to, because you did give a little bit of an overview of that, but it'd be lovely to hear more about your journeys as well and your experiences. So a couple of people were interested, first of all, in actually how you qualify. Now, we're not going to go too much into the SQE because that's a whole webinar in itself, and we have lots of webinars about how to prepare through the SQE. But I do think it might be helpful just to, Lisa, just give a quick overview of the SQE, just so the SQE route to qualification rather than the exams itself, just so people are clear about that kind of pathway.
Yeah, so the SQE, when we talk about that, is post graduate, but it doesn't have to be for law graduates. You can have done your undergrad degree in whatever. There's no requirement that it was a law degree, and there's no requirement to do what we call the GDL, which is sort of an introduction, if you like, to law. We would advise it because it's quite difficult to go to SQE knowing no law at all, but there's no reason why you can't do that. So the SQE is post-grad course. You do need a degree to qualify to be able to enroll on the SQE or to take the SQE1 exams. And then what you've got is 2 SQE exams. First SQE1 is attesting your ability to answer multiple choice questions in 13 different practice areas. And if you've done a law degree or you've done a conversion type course, the GDL, that's what our course is, then you'll be building on knowledge you've already got. And then once you pass the SQE1, you then go to SQE2, where you're tested more as to whether you can apply the legal knowledge in the types of skills you'd be using in the office. So drafting, interviewing, legal writing, that kind of thing. So that's 2 parts of it, the SQE1 and the SQE2. You'll also need your qualifying work experience, which I think we'll probably talk about a bit later. It needs to be a total of 2 years of qualifying work experience. And then also the Solicitors Regulation Authority kind of have the final say as to whether you appear to be a suitable person to practice as a solicitor. So I can I can see the question come up there. If you're sitting the SQE with 0 legal background, how do you get your foot in? Well, you probably need a training provider. So here we are. There are others, but you can study on your own. I think there are ways in which you can, not from us, but you can buy materials to study by yourself. But I think support for your study would be really key, particularly if you're new to the law. But that's the process, really.
Yeah, thank you. So in terms of the ways to get qualified, I mean, obviously there are lots of different career stages that people are at, and the the SQE is such a flexible way of qualification that actually it also doesn't matter if you get your qualifying work experience before or during or after SQE exams. So
Absolutely.
great news is in terms of access to the profession, that really helps. In terms of the work experience you're trying to secure, you know, everything that you're doing from undergraduate level onwards may be counted as qualifying work experience. So in terms of our questions, Shao, let's start with you. So in terms of ways to get qualified, so obviously we've mentioned this training contract concept, but in terms of your experience, there are lots of different ways that you can end up qualified as a solicitor. So what would you say to someone who's saying, what are the different ways that we can get qualified?
Yeah, so a lot of people, they would do direct applications to law firms that they're interested in. Those definitely are very competitive, as well as the other ways that you can get to it as well. I think me and Elliot both worked in the law firm, you know, started off as paralegal, and then slowly kind of progressed and got that opportunity. And that's exactly what I did as well. Although mine is slightly different because I'm not at the firm where I got my training contract from. But yeah, it's definitely possible to achieve in different ways. I do find that sometimes when you gain experience as paralegal first, it gives you a better understanding of the law firm, of how they operate, and naturally it becomes easier to kind of put yourself forward and say, I know I can do this job, mostly because I've been doing it. And I think it's a lot more convincing that way as well, because you've got more experience than outside applicants from the firm. So, you know, securing any sort of work experience could be really good as well. Vacation schemes. There's a lot of ways to kind of put yourself in front of people that are making those decisions of who to give the training contract to. So yeah, I guess it's not kind of like a one size fits all kind of method.
And how did you get into your paralegal role in the first place?
So I worked at quite a few law firms before I went to the firm where I got my training contract from. I think it's about kind of finding yourself in the industry as well. I know when I was starting out university, I was doing law, but I don't know what kind of lawyer I wanted to be. I don't know what kind of specialism I wanted to have. And from doing those paralegal jobs to start with, I knew what I didn't want to work in, so I didn't go back to those. But I think, you know, I was really passionate about litigation, and that really came through in my last role where, you know, it's just all different types of litigation every single day. And it gave me so much exposure to different areas of law as well. And that sort of passion and ability shows through because, you know, when you really want to do something, you're just going to do a better job at it. I think before, like, for example, no offense to anyone who's working in immigration, but my heart could not take it. And I knew I couldn't have a career in it because I just couldn't do it. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's helpful. But it does sound like there were a number of roles there before you got onto a training pathway. And actually, you don't even need to be on a training pathway now to qualify. But it did sound like you did quite a few different roles. Was that the same for you, Elliot, as well? In terms of going through, did you do a law degree or a conversion?
So, yeah, in terms of my working history, it's actually quite similar to Xiao's, but originally I actually wanted to be a criminal barrister, and I opted to go for a criminology degree at Kent University because I thought it would put me in good standing for that, and I knew I would find it interesting as well. And what I found that on that degree, it actually had some legal modules on it. It had criminal law, international law, and some legal processes and stuff like that. And it opened my eyes up to maybe some other areas of law that I hadn't considered. And then I had to do the GDL after that anyway, which involves doing, you know, contract law and property law and all these other areas. And as I was doing that on the GDL, I did find that maybe I'd rushed into my decision to maybe pursue criminal law, especially as a barrister, and not otherwise consider a future role as a solicitor and working in a team. So during my GDL, I applied for a vacation scheme at a law firm, city law firm, was successful in that. And I was actually working in the litigation and arbitration team in a law firm for 2 weeks, and I really enjoyed it. And I was like, I think this might be where my future lies, actually. And then
When you know, you know.
right, exactly that. So yeah, I can definitely attest to the passion for litigation as well. And off the back of that, they said, look, we haven't done this before, but we're releasing this new paralegal role. Would you be up for it? And I said, absolutely. You know, you're going to pay me some money. I've gone from law school earning nothing to earning some money. So I was like, absolutely sure. And that actually started my working history of paralegal stints at different law firms. And similar to Xiao, it was great in that it allowed me to immerse myself in the legal environment, to make connections, to build my network and understand, the business of a law firm from the inside, which I thought was invaluable experience. And I think brought me closer to where I could see myself being a lawyer upon qualification, and kind of the things I didn't like doing as well. And then I was able to land my role at my current firm where I am now as a paralegal, and they agreed to fund my my training to do the LPC, which I did part-time. And then, qualified, will be 3 years ago in March now, into the team that I was actually paralegaling in. So yeah, there are some paralegal stints in there, but looking back, I would say that I wouldn't change it for anything, because it made me the person I am today. And I know like who I am, what I like doing, what I don't like doing. And that I think has, molded me into the person I am today.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Lisa, what was your experience when you started off in the sector?
Well, actually, it's funny. As Imi was talking, I was thinking, gosh, I wish we'd had the 93% club back then, because I was in a very similar position. No, I didn't know anybody who was a lawyer. No, I didn't have any friends at school who were lawyers. So I actually chose law and business studies degree because I actually intended to go into retail management. And the company I was going to work for said, go and do a degree in anything other than management, because we'll teach you what we want you to know about management. Just go and do a degree that, shows you've got a brain. So I chose law and business studies because it just looked quite interesting. And then I got there and found everybody around me, had family connections with lawyers. It was all quite intimidating. But actually, then I really enjoyed the studies, and I kind of ended up joining them and then applying for a training contract. And I know we'll get more onto this in a minute, but things. I think things haven't changed that much. This was nearly 30 years ago. In the days of handwriting, letters and applications, before we didn't even have word processors, I handwrote 126 applications for training contracts. And out of that got a training contract. But it's never been easy. It's always been quite difficult. And then another kind of life lesson, it's easy to look back on now, but I at the last minute, the firm I had my training contract with actually deferred because they were struggling financially, so they deferred all of their trainees for a year, which at the time felt like the end of the world. I was absolutely just gutted. But I managed to get a job working at a county court. It was an admin role, really, but I was sort of dealing with basic level applications. And then actually, when I did then start my training contract a year later, my first seat was in civil litigation. And I made such a good impression because I'd got all this experience from the county court. So, sometimes it feels like it's all going awry, but it might not be. And any experience definitely is will be valuable in some way. And I think that's the thing to really say today, isn't it? That it doesn't, obviously you want to get there and everybody wants to get there as quickly as possible. But, there are so many ways you can get into this. I was fortunate back in those days. It was pretty common to just study full time for the LPC. As I say, then I had my enforced year out, and then I did my training contract and qualified. And I thought then, because I'd done really well in litigation in my first seat, I thought, well, this is me. And then I did commercial property and realised that's where my interest really lay. And I qualified into commercial property. And then that eventually, after about 7 years in private practice, took me to land registry, in-house at land registry. So again, I didn't see that coming. Didn't have that in my plan at all. But really, really fascinating work. So yeah, there are so many ways of going about it. And I think the message is always just keep plugging away, because you will get there. It will pay off.
Thank you. Thanks, Lisa. Thank you. I can see lots of questions in the chat. And what we're going to do now is I think we're going to tackle this first one head on, which is probably one of the hardest ones, which is how to get that very first legal job. So we've had a lot of questions, early career advice, breaking into the sector, someone who doesn't necessarily have any legal experience. So what tips can you give people, Elliot, in terms of someone who's sitting there, obviously really passionate about it? Maybe they've started their GDL or their SQE study, or they're an undergrad, but they just haven't got that connection into the sector yet.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think a lot of people get bogged down in taking the most traveled route, which is making training contract and vacation scheme applications, maybe with little experience behind that as well. But what I did, funnily enough, I think my first stint of legal experience was in secondary school. And I think this is my first experience of networking as well. I asked my mum, because I didn't know anyone in the legal industry, don't know any lawyers, barristers, or anyone like that. I'm actually the first person in my family to go to university. And I was asking around, like, who knows anyone in legal that would be able to help me? And I remember one day at my secondary school, it was like a prize night, and they have former students attend, and one of them was a criminal barrister. And he attended and he gave like a really rousing speech. And I thought I must speak to him afterwards, and spoke to him, and he gave me his card. And I, thought I'm going to follow up with him and just ask, because what's the worst that can happen, right? And I said, I would like to get some legal experience, as this is a career I'm interested in. And funnily enough, he took me up on that and said, absolutely, come shadow me, a couple of my cases for a day or two. And I went there, and it was amazing, such a great experience. And one of those experiences that most people aren't privy to. And I was only privy to it because I suppose I had the courage to ask. And funnily enough, this is something that is like, I pride myself on now, and I've taken with me even to this day, which is to, if you don't ask, you don't get.
Yeah.
You need to be willing to put yourself out there, and be forthcoming in terms of actively pursuing these opportunities, because they're not going to come to you. And especially where, you might be an international student, or your state school educated, or, you went to a non-Russell Group university, compared to some others who, might be from a more privileged background, and they've got a leg up. You need to be hustling to do whatever you can to put yourself in a position to, where was it, opportunity meets luck, and you're able to kind of secure these placements, or whatever it is, because by having that on my CV alone, that shadowing opportunity, I was then able to secure work experience at the CPS. And as you start to see, once you get your first foot in the door and you can put something solid on your CV about legal work experience, it starts to snowball, and it starts to accumulate over time, and all of a sudden more opportunities start coming to you. So that's like a personal anecdote about how I was able to get that to work for me. I suppose it speaks more to the networking kind of, that sort of side. But yeah, I'd be interested to know what maybe the other panelists think, or their thoughts on that as well.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I definitely agree. I think, to be very honest, I was bogged down so many times in the beginning. I remember doing all these training contract applications when I was in my undergrad, didn't get anywhere, and I just went into another industry instead of started working in that. And then I actually started my LPC at that job, doing it part-time. And then because I was so passionate, they could see that I was working in a different industry, but I still wanted to get that master's for myself. I was still interested in industry. I actually just reached out to people that were looking for work experience opportunities, had an interview with them, and they were like, actually, you seem really capable. We want to take you on as a paralegal. So that's kind of how I tumbled into my first legal job. But I left the industry quite a few times thinking, maybe it's not for me. And I think it's always easier said than done when we tell people, don't be slowed down by, rejections, don't let it get to you, but it will get to you. And, just let yourself feel it, or pick yourself back up, get back to it again, and you will get there eventually. And something that I really live by is every rejection is a redirection. There's been times where I've had to leave roles because it just wasn't worth it for me. It wasn't good for me. That never stopped me from getting the next role, because it's somewhere that I was meant to be. So you really have to believe that you have the ability to do it. But obviously, sometimes it's hard, which I get.
I'm just thinking of the different networking opportunities that secondary school one was opportunistic, Elliot, but what others are there for people? So obviously there's talk, isn't there, of like writing applications, doing all of that. But in terms of actually getting in front of people or just talking to people and seeing where those opportunities come, how would you advise people to just do that? Where would they go? What should they do?
Sure. Well, this is like an out of the box one that I've come across. I haven't done it myself, but if you go on to Google, you can create Google alerts. And I would encourage people to make a Google alert for a company, like a startup that has recently announced like Series B or Series C funding, right? And the reason I say that is because these are usually startups that are in their growth phase and they are constantly looking for people to help with what they're doing. And that usually includes their legal function as well. These companies, think of like Deliveroo in like 2015, for example, before they've become what they are now. And in doing so, you'll be notified what these companies are doing. So you have that commercial awareness thing going on. And then you should be able to look up certain people on LinkedIn that work for that entity and reach out to them directly and say, look, I've been following you guys, really taken with what you're doing. And I think I could make an impact by, helping with your contract or, client document management system, whatever it is. They usually love having like a paralegal within their legal function, even though they may not advertise it. And so this is kind of like a lesser known route in, if you will. So it does mean, I suppose, working in-house within legal capacity, but I imagine that still qualifies or, satisfies the qualifying work experience category. But I do know quite a few people who have used that method with a lot of success. So that's something that some people could potentially use.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So how
just
about
something
you?
to add to that.
Oh, sorry, go on,
Sorry.
Cal. No,
Just to
okay.
add to that as well, I think a lot of us, when we're starting out, we go for the biggest, most well-known firms. Those firms are a lot harder to get into. I think when you approach kind of smaller firms, even if it's like your local high street firm, because you have that connection geographically, they're a lot more likely to say, yeah, come in, maybe you can shadow someone, maybe you can help us with some admin. Either way, you've got yourself in that law firm. So don't kind of focus on the biggest fish possible. So start small, and hopefully, maybe you won't even want to go to large firms later, or maybe you'll be happy in the first firm that you go to.
There's definitely been good examples of some of our students who've been PAs, actually. They've taken some brilliantly transferable skills from different sectors. They've gone in at PA level, which means they're working with the top in the team in a firm. And then because they're impressing the people at the top, they then get sponsored more quickly than some of the paralegals through the SQE or through, to become a solicitor. So I think the administrative roles, the compliance roles, the HR roles, the things that overlap a little with the legal roles you might want to get into. If you're coming with experience, and there are some questions on the chat about people who are older, so they're more experienced, you've probably got lots of experience in working in an office, in administrative work, in problem solving, in all those transferable skills. You might need to take them into that kind of position, that legal assistant role or administrator role, and then quite quickly, you often see people progress quickly through.
I think I'd echo that as well, Alice, just to say, especially what Elliot said, and Shao, don't limit your applications. Obviously, you've only got so many hours you can give to it, but don't write things off as looking as though it probably won't go anywhere, because you could be, as you say, get in as a paralegal, a legal secretary. I've known, because obviously I've been in private practice for a long time, I've known quite a few legal secretaries who, in fact, the lady who was my legal secretary back in Norwich about 20 years ago is now a partner in that firm. So there are, don't discount ways in. And there, I think as well, it's so hard and so competitive to get the training contract that will take you straight through in 2 years and you're qualified. It is much more common now, and you're definitely not alone if you're looking for these other ways in. And I think it's absolutely right. Make direct contact with the smaller firms. Look up on their website, find out who the HR manager is.
Find them on LinkedIn.
Find them on LinkedIn. You can, and I think, we've sort of touched on it, but when you when you make that contact, even though it's not a formal application, because they're not maybe inviting applications, be really specific. Give them a piece of information in that application as to why you think, you've really got some interest in what they're doing, or, you noticed that, they were doing some fundraising for a charity that actually is quite close to your heart. It's something that will just give you a little bit of a standout just from the general, I would like to be a solicitor. Do you have any roles? Think about what you can say. What have you seen on their LinkedIn or their website about what they're doing at the moment? And I think, Alice, your transferable skills point is really huge, because don't think because you've got no legal experience, you've got nothing to offer. You just need to play on all the communication skills and, dispute resolution in any sense. Where have you worked with difficult people? Can you deal with conflict, organizing your time, just generally teamwork. Everybody says that, but you can give an example. So there's lots of ways to give yourself a better chance than the kind of scattergun, just send your application everywhere.
Yeah, some of the firms that I was speaking to, I think it was 2 weeks ago, they didn't want 18-year-olds coming into their organisation. They didn't even necessarily always want 21-year-olds coming in either. They actually would quite like, particularly in smaller organisations, someone who's used to the workplace. There's a lot of benefits of someone who's already been in the workplace and being experienced in whatever context that is, and actually has got to that level of experience and maturity that actually they can give a lot, as well as obviously learning about the legal skills. A couple of networking other things to add. I'd say definitely the junior lawyers divisions in your areas. They are a really friendly bunch. If anyone's apprehensive about joining them, they are lovely and they will welcome everybody. So please don't feel like because you missed out on your uni law society, or uni didn't have one, or you're international, that you can't engage with the junior lawyers in your area. And actually the actual law societies as well will often take junior lawyers as for free student membership. And if you're an SQE student or GDL student, that still counts as student membership. You don't have to be an undergraduate student. So they took LPC students, they'll take SQE students. So there's free events that you can go to, and you can network and you can talk to people and you can just get more of a sense of it. So I definitely recommend the face-to-face local events if you're at all possible can get to them as well.
Just to say quickly, if you go onto the law, sorry, Alice, if you go onto the Law Society website, it will then tell you where it will give you the links to all of those local junior lawyer divisions.
Yeah. Thank you. So just pausing we'll talk about what QWE is just briefly. I could just do this briefly for you. So 2 years work experience has to be delivering client work. So it can be in any organisation, it can be paid, unpaid, but it is about delivering client services work, legal work, and it needs to meet the statement of solicitor competence. I think there was a question, it was about the 2 years. So the 2 years, you do need to have 2 years full-time equivalent work. So someone was asking about the number of hours a week. So if you are working part-time, or some of your work is administrative or compliance but not legal, you would only need to work out the part that is your legal work experience. What have I forgotten, Lisa, in terms of QWE?
You can, as you said, it can be unpaid as well. So voluntary work might count if it's the right kind of work. It doesn't have to be paid. And it can be in different organisations, up to 4 different organisations. So again, it's not the end of the world if you can get 3 months somewhere, paid or unpaid. That would start, that would start the process, if you like. That might get you the 3 weeks. I don't think we can say specifically how many weeks, because what it comes down to is how much of the work you are doing, really counts as the quality of work, if you like, that it needs to be. There is a template on the Solicitors Regulation Authority website for recording QWE, and that has a little bit of detail on it. And there is a lot of detail generally on that website, but on the template itself, there's a little bit of information about, what sort of work you might be thinking about recording. And I suppose the thing to say is as well, if you think you're doing QWE, it's worth checking with the person who is monitoring that, because they will need to sign it off. You need a qualified solicitor or an SRA regulated signer offer to do that. So just make sure that when you're in the process, there is somebody, who knows what you're doing and will be able to sign that at the end.
Thank you. So let's
Yeah.
move on to vacation schemes and training contracts because people have asked about that as well. And then
Yeah.
we'll look at some of the questions we haven't touched upon in the chat. So, Shao, do you want to just tell us about your advice and your experience of obviously securing a training contract, a vacation scheme? Like, what should people be thinking about when they're doing those applications?
Yeah, I think about kind of what sets you apart from other people. It's not necessarily what you've achieved, but it's about your differences. So, for
Mm.
example, with me, I talked a lot about kind of work, having my first part-time job when I was 16 and then kind of working throughout uni. But most importantly, you have to know kind of how to market yourself as well. So, for example, I could say, I moved stock all day, but I could say I was really organized. I could say I was good at timekeeping. I could say that, I communicated targets well with my manager, whatever it is. And that way they know, well, they can literally see through the language that you use how you're going to show up at the workplace that you want to work for. So I know it sounds a little bit fluffy, a little bit waffly, but it does work. At least it worked for me.
Well, I heard, I think it was Reed Smith say, is they're not looking also just to reassure people for like 10 different bits of legal experience you've already got. If you can illustrate and describe the benefits or the reflections you've had from your one or two meaningful vacation schemes or shadowing, that will hold as much value, if not more, than a whole list of things. I don't think that necessarily helps if someone just rattles down all the different opportunities they've had.
Yeah.
So I think if you've got one or two, Elliot, would that be right? That actually are quite meaningful and you can articulate what they meant for you and what you've learned from them. That's what they're looking for more.
Yeah, I absolutely co-sign that. And I think fundamentally, it's all about quality over quantity. I made the mistake of when I was first engaging in rounds of training contract applications, I was kind of firing from the hip and I was just applying to everywhere and anywhere that would take me because I was thinking law of averages, all it takes is the one yes. And I was kind of basing my applications on maybe the prospectuses and the materials that I was seeing from firms. And I was thinking, oh yeah, that's probably what they want me to be. So I'm going to portray that in my applications. But over the years, as I kind of grew and developed as a professional myself, I found that that's not authentic, that's not me. And the best way to get their attention is to, as Shao said, what's your unique selling point? Everyone is different. And, it's about honing in on those differences and finding like a connecting thread between what you're good at and what the firm is looking to do or what they're good at. So, for example, I was part of a panel at Kent University a couple of weeks ago, and afterwards a student came up to me, said she was struggling about, like where to apply to firms for training contracts and things of that nature. And she told me about her background. She said she was born in South Africa and has an interest in ESG and infrastructure projects and stuff like that. And I said, oh, okay, that's perfect. You've got like I think your unique selling point there. And I think as a result, you should be targeting firms that maybe have an interest in growing their Africa practice and specialize in infrastructure projects globally. And she never really put two and two together there. And I was just there to kind of help her to do that. And I think that allowed her to kind of whittle down the number of firms that she would be applying to, and so that she could, really hone in on, as I say, on that quality rather than quantity. And I advised her to, try and apply for maybe no more than 10 firms in a cycle, because you really need to research each and every firm, and there needs to be like 7 to 10 days worth of effort going into these applications. So don't spread yourself too thin. Hone down the number of firms you want to apply to, but really, try and get that USP across that, in terms of the firms that you're applying for. And, because they should be able to see, if you said to someone, these are all the firms I'm applying for, someone should be able to see and be like, I see where you're going with that. That makes perfect sense. So try and keep that in mind rather than just having this kind of scattergun approach to applications like I did.
Yeah.
I know the feeling. Oh, can I just quickly add to that as
Yeah,
well?
of course.
I think because someone from kind of a diverse background as well, if you speak different languages, it could be really helpful in the role that you're applying for. So one of my roles, they were looking for a Mandarin speaker. But other than that, you could also look at, where the firms might have different offices, what kind of clients they deal with that you could help with, because you would bring a different type of understanding to someone who might not have any experience with that region at all. So something that's worth thinking about. I know we have a lot of international students here as well, so that's kind of your unique selling point, and I don't even have to know you to know that, so you should definitely push that forward.
Yeah, I mean, we have got some questions, haven't we, about people based outside the UK, which is even harder, really, to get into the UK and into the sector here. And there are virtual work experience opportunities, which I can share with them afterwards. There aren't a lot of them. I wouldn't, but there are virtual insight days, there are virtual work placements. So there are things like that where you can get a taste of a different firm now, which you never could do previously. But I absolutely agree with that in terms of if you're bilingual, if you've got a different cultural background or experience, or you've just worked in lots of different countries and you've got that international overview, you can bring so much more to it. Lisa, anything to add from your side?
Oh, just to say for QWE, actually, you can work abroad, and it doesn't necessarily have to be working, and laws of England and Wales. So it does give, the opportunities or the potential for where you can get this QWE is quite wide. And there is, again, there's more information on the SRA website. But yes, you don't have to be thinking, if you can't, be in England right now, is that the only way you can do that? There was another question about timing, and just to say you can go back. There's no limit on how far you can go back in terms of when you did your QWE. The only practical issue might be, having someone who will sort of sign it off for you to confirm that 4 years ago you did something that actually would give you, 6 months QWE. But there's no limit on, how long ago it was. It doesn't have to be, current. So that's worth thinking about as well.
Yeah, thank you. So just looking through the questions. So one of the students at the college currently working at Bond Turner is how should they find social events for trainee solicitors? Chow, have you found any like that?
I think we've been trying to arrange a social for the past 2 months, Elliot. It hasn't happened yet because everyone's so busy. I don't know where she's based, but please feel free to reach out to me. We can meet up.
But I think the junior lawyer divisions as well are, it does depend on years, but they are for trainees. The majority of people I was saying there are trainees and paralegals in a junior lawyer division, and there are national junior lawyers division as well. So I think it's definitely worth trying that if you can find it. I'll just share that link that you mentioned, Lisa, to the Law Society's website with people afterwards. Does this support apply to non-uni students? I think that was referring to the 93% Club, so I'll send that information round. And I think 93% Club certainly was much more focused on anyone who went to a state school rather than a particular university. So I would say that would be included. In terms of the time limit for work experience, actually there isn't one at all. You mentioned that, Lisa, so you can do your QWE far beyond your SQE or previously. Applying for an exemption or SQE2 after your results for your SQE. So there are no specific times that you need to apply for exemptions. Some international lawyers get exemptions from part of the SQE. And you can actually apply for SQE2 exemption, for example, before you do SQE1. So you don't actually have to wait to do SQE1 before you apply for exemption for SQE2. So you can do that application early for SQE2 exemption if you're an international lawyer. If you currently hold the LPC and the SRA solely requires you to complete SQE2, is it possible to do it without having completed SQE1? Lisa?
Yeah, absolutely.
We have quite a few LPC graduates.
We do have lots of LPC students who come in straight away to do SQE2, yeah.
I think the one thing we would say is it might take you longer to get your head around the SQE1 legal knowledge. So you might just need to give yourself quite a lot of time.
Yeah, just because it's pitched at a slightly higher level. Well, it's pitched at a different level to LPC. So it will be familiar, but you would need, yes, maybe a bit more time than somebody who's just an SQE1, just to make sure you're across all the practice areas that you need for SQE2.
Okay. So you can see some no experience, how to penetrate the market. I think we've gone through that one. Looking the door and just scrolling down, making sure I haven't forgotten anyone's questions. I think that's all of them.
I can see one there actually, Alice, which goes right to Elliot's point.
Yeah.
Now we're saying I'm doing a graduate scheme in business development and marketing at a law firm. How do I approach my firm to offer me experience in the legal work?
Yeah.
Just go and ask. Go and tell them that you're absolutely, really enjoying your role, and you actually can see that, qualifying as a solicitor might actually be the route that you would like to take. If you don't try, but be ready again to, bring something with you and tell them what you think you can offer. But I think that goes right to Elliot's, if you don't ask, you don't get.
Yeah.
And if you don't get it there, use that experience to apply somewhere else and say, I've been doing this business development role in the solicitor's firm, and actually I've realised that I would really like to, jump to that side of things and be a solicitor. Use that experience to then, that would make your, as Shao was saying, that then gives you your USP when you're applying for something else, that you've got some experience, you've seen what working as a solicitor looks like. And you'd really like to pursue that. So yeah.
And don't let it get to you if they don't give it to you.
Yes.
You want to work for someone that wants you there as well.
Absolutely.
Don't take it personally.
Yeah, definitely. And there's a question about international QWE experience. I think that is the one thing some of our international students do find hard, is you do need to get your QWE confirmed by a qualified solicitor of England and Wales. So if you don't have one in your organisation, you've got to go find one that you can talk to and you can give them that direct evidence, really, haven't you, Lisa, of your work?
Yeah.
So that can be a bit tricky. In terms of any more thoughts, I guess, Shao and Elliot, what else would you be saying in terms of advice to people on the call who are clearly kind of really wanting to break into the sector at the moment?
I would think about building up commercial awareness as much as possible. It's been a buzzword in the legal industry for a long time when thinking about potential trading contract vacation scheme candidates. And what it is basically is what do you know about legal business and the legal world? And I found that if you are in tune with generally what's going on, global affairs, and I think you tend to demonstrate more of an awareness as to how globalized and how interconnected events are when, for example, the budget will be announced tomorrow by the government, and then how that interlinks with, mortgage rates, and then leasing in the real estate market, and then how that affects finance, corporate deal making, M&A, things of that nature. So having an awareness of that, I think, is crucial. And the way in which I usually advise people to kind of stay abreast of that stuff is subscribe to The Lawyer, which, funnily enough, most lawyers are subscribed to The Lawyer. We get on a mailing list, and we get like updates about what's happening in the legal world. That's a great resource, I think, worth using. And secondly, something like the Financial Times is really good. They have a legal section within that publication, which helps to also stay on top of commercial awareness. And then my second point would be, don't be afraid to look into pro bono and kind of volunteering opportunities as well. When I was on the GDL, I applied for a placement at the Brent Housing Association. And although I knew like property law wasn't exactly what I wanted to get into, or landlord tenant law, it was great because it taught me, it had still had an element of litigation in there, which is what I wanted to do. And it taught me about how to, handle client complaints, how to see a case through from start to finish, and was a good way in which I was able to immerse myself in the legal environment. And I did that. I think I did that like one day a week for a few terms, and it was a fantastic experience. But I would point people in the direction of, the Citizens Advice Bureau, the Free Representation Unit, the Prisoners Advice Service. Like, there's loads of good pro bono initiatives out there which helped you to sharpen your legal skills, and you can put on your CV to help improve your marketability and help you I suppose sell yourself a bit better, or better position you to make those eventual applications to training contracts.
Yeah, the experience I hear people get by being thrown into those kind of roles, you'd never get in a law firm sometimes, would you? But you're dealing with clients, and as you say, complaint handling, managing clients day to day, like the toughest part of some lawyers' roles. you're just doing all the time, aren't you? And you get that exposure so quickly, I guess, to that. So I definitely would agree with that. Thank you.
Just to quickly
Yeah,
add to
go
that as
on.
well. I
Yeah.
think the approach to small firms, I think I agree with everything that's Elliot said already. But sometimes with small firms, we have to remember that they're also a business, and what they want to see is someone that knows how to maintain that client relationship, make sure that the money keeps coming in as well. Because a lot of the training contracts in smaller firms aren't necessarily based on, rounds of examination necessarily. It's more about kind of, can you hit the targets? Can you make sure that you're billing this amount per month? So if you've done even just a sales role, you can demonstrate that sort of capability as well. So, never sell yourself short, and do a lot of research if you do interview at the law firm, if you are approaching someone, and really kind of show them not only are you aware of the world, you're also aware of how you can add value to the firm.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Lisa?
Yeah, I suppose, and it sort of should be an obvious one, but it sometimes goes by the wayside when you're trying to get through so many applications, is really do have a look at the role that's being advertised, and talk about put something in your application that addresses if they've got required skills or desirable skills or experience. You might have some really great stuff to put down, but also just make sure that you've actually looked at what they've said they're asking for. Because then you'll hit that mark, as well as being able to bring, whatever experience, as Xiao says, if you've done a sales role and been really successful, whatever it is, bring that to it as well. But really do look at if you're responding to an advert, of course, really look at what they say they are looking for and try and hit some of those points.
Thank you. Just the last couple of questions. Xiao, Elliot, how can people get hold of you? Do you want to pop your LinkedIn here, or I can send it around afterwards, perhaps, if you're
I'll
happy
put it in the
to
chat.
A couple of questions about SQE that have come to us. So our SQ1 course, SQ2 course does include our SQE1 knowledge, yes. And we can send more detailed information to a couple of people who have asked about the SQE route qualification. In terms of exemptions, I think that's quite specific. In terms of exemptions, if you didn't complete an LPC, you may not get the exemption for SQE. If you pass SQE1, SQE2.
I think SQE2 exemptions are a far more what's the word, rare,
Yes.
Not so common. So I think I would say you need to look at the SRA website for that one.
Yeah, I think so. Oh, this is one for you, Lisa. Does commercial property management work experience help getting into law firms dealing with property, real estate, and probate?
Well, I think it's everything we've really just talked about, isn't it? It's you can demonstrate an interest in that industry, in property. Doesn't matter if it's commercial or residential. And then you think about the transferable skills. What have been your targets as in that role? How have you dealt with? I mean, I should imagine commercial property management, you come across quite a lot of disgruntled tenants. How have you dealt with that? How have you dealt with them? You're probably working for the landlord. I think that's the type of work you're talking about. You'll be doing management work for a landlord. How have you come in on budget, all that kind of thing. So you're not necessarily going to have lots of legal experience, but that's what you're trying to get. So I don't think there's a a sort of a specific, yes, that will definitely get you in. But I think what you can do with it is, as we've explained, draw out of it a demonstration of a real interest in that sector, and the fact that you've been working, all of this, as you said, Alice, not all firms are looking for 18 or 21-year-olds. They can be interested in people who've already demonstrated a willingness to show up for work every day, and that kind of thing. So I'd say there's plenty you could pull out of that as part of an application.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you all so much. There are also lots of organisations that do take graduates, GDL graduates, or undergrad law graduates straight into their businesses. So we have lots of firms that work with us that do that. They do tend to be based in one or two offices. They tend to be smaller, but and then there are large paralegal pools in all the major kind of UK cities for lots and lots of firms, which will take law grads and GDL grads. So they are there for you. The amount of jobs that are there for you at kind of that level, I would say sometimes is more obtainable than potentially those training contracts. Well, thank you so much for your time. Xiao and Elliot in particular, it's been fantastic to hear from you and really inspiring to hear your experiences and kind of just give another example to our students and the people attending about how you can get to where you've got to. I wish you well in your legal careers, and thank you so much, Lisa, for joining us as well.
No problem.
All
Lovely.
right.
Thanks, Alice.
I will send the
you.
recording to everyone who's registered and lots of information for people. So hope that was helpful. If anyone does want to talk to the team about the SQE, you'll get a lot more information and time from the team if you want to give us a bell as well. All right. So thank you very much, and I hope it was helpful.
Thank you.
Take
Thanks
care.
for having
Bye.
me.
Bye.
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 Bye.